Yeah, hi there. Uh, so in this tutorial, we are going to cover exploratory data analysis in Python on a Reddit dataset. So what is Reddit? Reddit is an American social news aggregation, web content rating and discussion website. So the members, registered members, actually they submit their content to the site such as link, posts, images, and the other members either they vote it up or vote it down. Okay, so to begin with, I'm just importing the libraries NumPy, Pandas, Matplotlib, Seaborn, and I'm setting the warnings to ignore. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just setting up the decimal places up to two decimal places formatting it up to two decimal places. Okay, so let's load the data. I'm loading data from a CSV file which I've placed it in my data directory. Once the data is loaded into df data frame, I'll first check the number of dimensions. If I using df.shape, and since it returns two values, I'm uh, collecting it in n rows and columns, and I'm printing it out. So the data set has 1,83,891 rows and 12 columns. So next thing to check is what is the data type of the column. So this is the data type. So some columns are integer type, some are object. So ID basically represents the ID of the person who posted it. It's alphanumeric. Title is the title of the post. Score is the number of uh, votes that particular post got. Author is the person who actually posted it, and it's a flare depending upon what type of flare that particular message that particular message contained. Removed by, whether that post was removed. If yes, then who actually removed it, and the number of awards received, and awarders, the time in UTC when that post was created, the full link, number of comments made up for that particular post, and whether the person who posted is over 18 or under 18. So let's have a quick look at the data set. So I'm just looking at the first few records. df.head n equals to 3. So these are the first three records. So you see this is the ID column, title, score, author. So all those columns that we saw, we can get it from here. Now, the first thing is to check the missing data. How much percent of data is missing in each of the columns? So once I check it using df.isNA and dividing by and calculating the sum and dividing by the total number of observations and multiplying it by 100, we get the percentage. So we see that these are the columns which have a fair amount of data missing. So author flair text has 87% data missing, removed by has 94%. Total rewards received 76% missing data, and awarders has 82% missing data. So I would be removing these columns, just before removing these columns, what I want to do is to see what are the top three values in each of these columns so that we can get an understanding. So starting with author underscore flair, I'm just doing the value counts and selecting the first three. So I see OC1, OC2, that is OC, I think it's an acronym for original content. So whenever the authors actually post it, and if they have something like OC in their title or something, then it gets tagged as original content. So original content one, original content two, and the third one is the practitioner. So these are the top three flares. Next is removed by. So the posts which were removed, so majority of them were removed by the moderator, around 8,030. Then some of them were deleted, and a small amount like 960 were automatically filtered. So top three frequent values of the total awards received. If we see total awards received, if I just again do the value counts and print the first three, so so there were around 43,941 posts which did not receive any award. So if you see 0 means no award was received by these many number of posts. 38 posts received one award, and 8 received two awards. Okay, for the awarders, if I see, then I see just there's a missing list, and then there is storm, so I think some um, junk values. Okay, so definitely this column is not worth keeping. So I'll be removing all these columns because they have more than 70% of the data missing. So using df.drop and listing the column names using in place equals to true and access is one, I have removed these columns. And after removing this column, I'm just double checking what is now left as a missing. So if I see there is only one missing data available in this title, rest of the columns have values. So I'll just drop that row which contains missing. So using df.drop na access is 0. So remove that particular row in which any of the value is null. So it will remove that particular row where the title was missing. And if I just cross check once again, now I see there is no missing data. Okay, now let's proceed further. So next thing I want to check the ID column, whether this ID is unique or not. So what I'm doing is I'm finding out the length of the data frame and comparing it with the length of the ID. So if since it is true, what it means that each value which is present in the ID column is unique. So since it uniquely identifies each row, so why not to set it as an index? So I'm just setting it as an index, the ID column. And after setting it as the index, if I see the first three records, this is what it looks like. So this is the ID, and this is the title of the post, score, and other columns. Fine. So let's start with our column author. So this is we have author. So the person who actually posted it. Yeah. So I want to see who are the top five authors in terms of the number of records or the data points that are present in it. So I'm just grouping it on the basis of author and finding out the size and sorting the values in the descending order and displaying the first five records. Now, if I notice that there is the number one in the list that comes as the deleted, so it means there are a lot of records in which the author name is given as deleted. Uh, so basically it means uh, this is not a valid author name. So I'll be removing all those records which have those author name as deleted. So I'm dropping those records. So I'm just selecting those records where author name is deleted and finding out the index of those records, and I'm dropping it based on those index. So once this is done, now let's quickly check what is the final shape of the data frame. It has now 1,55,294 rows and 7 columns. Continuing further, now what I'm doing is I'm just converting title and author into the uppercase. The idea is any duplicacy because of the mismatch of case should be avoided. So I'm converting it everything into uppercase. Cool. Now next is find out the top five authors who made the post. So basically, people posted it, and I want to find out based on the number of posts that were made, who are the top five. So I'm just grouping by the author, finding out the size that tells the number of records for based on the author, sorting it in the descending order and finding out the top five. So this is what we get. So this author had 2,293 posts, followed by overflows, then the others. Okay, and so next I'm creating a function basically which is to draw the bar plot in which I'll be passing a series and the title for the X label, Y label, and the plot title. And using this function, I'll be doing the bar plot. So let's do the bar plot for this the top five author by posts that we created here, this particular series. I'm just passing that series to it and the titles, and this is what we get in the output. So these are the top five author by posts represented in a bar plot. So if you see this particular author had huge lead over compared to the other authors. Now another thing that I'm doing here in this is finding out the top five titles based on the sum of the scores. So score is basically you can say kind of a votes only. So so there were titles which were posted and people some upvoted, some downvoted. So mostly whatever votes were given, I want to find out the sum of the votes or the sum of the scores for each title, that is total score for each title, and I want to find out which title had which are the top five titles in terms of the number of scores. or the votes they got. So I'm just grouping it on the basis of title, and I'm finding out the sum of the score and resetting the index and sorting it based on the score in the descending order and finding out the top five, which I'm calculating, which I'm collecting it in this top five titles by score. Now, since I found that the numbers were high, so let's convert the scale of the score into thousands. So I'm just dividing thousand by score by thousand, and just renaming it column so that it appropriately represents that this score now is actually in thousands. So I'm adding so I'm renaming score to score underscore k, and I'm just finally printing this newly created data frame. So this is what we have. So this is the title, and this is the score that it got in thousands. So it got 733,000. Then the next title got 116,000 and so on. So again, we can print it. So what I'm doing it based on this, because this is a data frame. So I have to, and the bar plot that bar creation of a bar plot function that I created expects a series. So what I'm doing it based on this data frame, I'm just creating a series S which has this is scores as the values and the index as the title name, and just passing the series to that bar plot function with the appropriate ylab and the xlab titles and the plot title, and this is what we get. So we have total score in thousands on the x-axis, and on the y-axis we have the titles, and this is what the title of the particular plot. So looking at the score or the votes, so I just wanted to find out how many posts had more than 30 or up to 30 votes or score. So I found that around 90% of the posts had score up to 30, that is within the range from 0 to 30. 90% of the data points were covered, so there were only 10% of the data points where the number of score was more than 30. Okay, so let's continue further. Now I want to find out the top five titles based on the number of comments, because each title had some number of comments. So what I'm doing is I'm just aggregating all the number of comments for each title and printing it out the top five titles based on the total number of comments they got. So again, just grouping it based on the title, and aggregating the number of comments, calculating the sum, just resetting the index, sorting it based on the number of comments in the descending order, displaying the first five records, storing it in the data frame, and I'm converting it again into thousands by dividing it by thousand. This is just a conversion into the scale from the normal value to the thousand value, and then appropriately renaming the column by adding k to it, indicating that this number of comments is in thousands, and displaying the data frame. So this is what we got. So this title data underscore IRL got 60,000 comments. Wow. Then the another title got around 10,000 comments. Now, again, from this data frame, I'm creating a series because our function to draw the bar plot expects a series. So I'm just creating a series based on the values and the index, and calling the bar plot function, which actually plots the title based on the number of comments. So this is what we get. On the x-axis is the total number of comments on the thousands. On the y-axis we have the titles, and this is the title of the plot, which says top five titles by total comments. So next I'm doing is because we also have one column called as created underscore UTC, which actually captures the time in UTC in up to seconds. So what I'm doing is I'm just converting it into normal date time format. So I'm just creating another function called df created, and using pd.to date time I'm converting the created UTC in specifying the unit as seconds. So we got the time in the form of normal date and time, just to understand what is the range of the date time. So if I see the minimum and maximum, so it starts from 14th of February 2012 and goes up to 19th of June 2020. Yeah, and if I see the number of, now what I'm doing is I'm just finding out the number of posts on the daily basis. So I'm so using so the data frame df, I'm just grouping it based on the created, that's the column that we have created just now, and from that particular column, because this column has date and time as well. If you see, this is the date part and this is the time part. Now I'm interested only in the date part, so I have to extract date from this created column. So that's why I'm using df created dot dt dot date. So this basically will extract the date part from for each of the values, and it will aggregate, and then based on the size we are getting the number of posts on a daily basis. And I'm just doing a line plot to get a time series kind of a visualization. If you see the trend, the number of posts is increasing from 2012 to 2020, and there were certain days when it actually spiked a lot. So out of curiosity, I wanted to find out which were those days when we saw a huge spike. So if you see, what I'm doing is, I'm just using that series S, which we had just created. I'm just sorting it based on the values in the descending order and finding out the top five. So these are the top five dates. So 1st of April 2019, we had 851 posts. Then the second was again 1st of April, this time 2017, this time 635 posts, and another one is 2nd of April. So it means something happens on 1st April or 2nd April, maybe people celebrating Fool's Day or I don't know what. But yeah, uh, so a lot of posts on that particular day. So another column that we had was over 18. So I wanted to find out how many data points are there in which the person who posted was over 18 or under 18. So based on this, what we got is 99.50% posts were by the people who are under 18. So over 18 is false, means they are under 18, and only 0.5%, just half percent data points are there where the people who posted were over 18. Surprising. And I'm just now I'm doing a scatter plot between the two columns. One is on the x-axis, we have the number of comments. So basically the idea is to find out if a particular title or a post had higher number of comments, whether it fetched higher number of scores or votes or not. So kind of finding out the relationship between the two. So we have on the x-axis the number of comments, y-axis is the score, and these are the data points. The orange ones you see are the ones which are done by the people who are over 18, and the blue ones, the majority ones, are the ones by under 18. So that's it for this EDA session. Thank you.